Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for being here today. If you're here for the Quality Horizon 2024, the Software Quality Forum, you're in the right place. We are finalizing a couple of tech checks here, make sure audio and video are good, and we are going to start in about a minute. In the meantime, welcome, everyone. Go ahead and get some coffee, some water, stretch your arms and legs. We are going to be here for a little bit, so we will get started in just a minute. Thank you all. All right, welcome everyone. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, wherever you're joining us from. Welcome to the Quality Horizon 2024, hosted by Katalon, Curiosity Software, Octoperf, Wiremark, and X-Ray. My name is Lucio Daza, and I will be your host today, and I'm thrilled to see so many familiar faces here with us and new ones also joining us today. So in this event, this is where we get to dive into the world of software quality. And trust me, it is going to be much more exciting than it sounds. So we're very happy about this. So what is in the agenda today? First, today we're going to open with a panel discussion titled The Future of Software Testing, where we will get to hear from the expert minds of Alex Martins, VP of Strategy at Katalon, Guillaume, co-founder at Octoperf, Dan Pervik, Head of Sales Engineering and Customer Success at Wiremark, Sergio Freire, Director of Solution Architecture and Test Management at X-Ray, and last but not least, we have with us Ben Johnson-Ward, Lead Solutions Engineer at Curiosity Software. This panel will be followed by a conversation that we will have with Alex from Katalon called Revolutionizing Testing with AI. Followed by that, we're going to hear from Guillaume on code versus clicks, and he's going to talk to us about the shifting landscape of performance testing. Then we're going to learn how you can embed mocking in your Katalon test suites to solve the dependency headache. And then we're very excited to hear from Sergio. We're going to talk about the holy grail of testing. And most importantly, Sergio is going to help us answer the question, have we found it yet? And last but not least, we're going to hear from Ben, where he is going to tell us all about testing with AI, AI-driven systems, and also machine learning pipelines. I want to add a note and let you all know that we're living in a time where software is king, and let's be honest, we don't want to deal with glitchy apps. We don't want to deal with websites that crash all the time, or services that are not keeping our customers happy. And on the testing side, we don't want to deal with systems that cannot be integrated or are expensive or clunky and slow software testing pipelines and processes. And that's where we come in. This event is all about sharing, learning, and most importantly, getting excited about the future of software testing and software quality. So as you already know, we have some super smart minds here with us today that are going to share some cool insights and stuff like AI in testing, integrations, best practices, and much more. And of course, let's not forget about software test automation, because who doesn't want to make life easier, right? So I really want to make this event a two-way street. Your ideas, your questions, your experiences are what will make today awesome. So please don't be shy, whether you're a pro who has seen it all or a newbie who is coming with fresh eyes and he is here to learn. Your questions and your input and your conversation is gold for us. So please, during today's event, I want to encourage you to engage with the audience. The chat will be fully open for you to talk, to ask any questions, to engage with other people in the event today. If you have any ideas that you want to share, if you have any concerns that you want to share, if there is any questions that you may have, please don't leave those in your mind. Go ahead and communicate that with us. I want to also give a huge shout out to everyone who helped us put this together, from Wiremark, Katalon, Curiosity, Octoperf, and X-Ray. We're very, very happy. It has been a wonderful journey to get here, and now we're very excited to see this come to fruition. But you, the person who is dialing in from any one of our continents, that person who is dialing in the middle of the evening, or the person who's dialing in right at the end of a long day at work, or maybe at the beginning of what is going to be a long day at work, You are the real MVP, and we're very happy to have you here. So now with that, let's go ahead and kick back. Let's have some fun and maybe learn a thing or two about not only how to make a software that only works well, but it works wonders. So with that, here is to a great event. Let's go ahead and get started. Before we get started, I want to go ahead and also reemphasize the fact that any questions that you may have, I want you to please engage in the chat. As you already know, we're going to have a full agenda today. We're going to run from 10 in the morning here. I'm located in the eastern in the eastern coast of the United States, so it's a little past 10 in the morning for us. We have all these discussions that I mentioned to you a few minutes ago, and we're going to run in the same Zoom link all the way until the closing remarks at 2 p.m. So feel free, if we understand this may be a long session, that you may not want to stay the entire time. Couple of things. This is going to be where we're running it live. You can come in and out anytime that you want. And on top of that, this is going to be available on demand. We're going to grab the recording. We're going to break it down into bite-sized pieces for you, and it will be available on demand on the Katalon website, on the YouTube channel, and also with the partners that we're presenting today, they will make it available for you as well. In addition to that, if you have any questions, while I encourage you to have the conversation and continue the conversation on the chat window, which I already see that is getting extremely active, and I'm very, very happy for that. If you have any question, please also use the Q&A button that you see in the Zoom interface. If you look at where you're watching this webinar, there is a little Q&A or a queue, I believe. Yeah, Q&A has two little bubbles in there. Go ahead and put all your questions in there. The reason for that is because the way that Zoom works, if you ask a question in there, we will get a record of who is asking it, what was the question, and your email, the email that you used to register for this event. So in the unlikely case that we cannot answer the question live for you, we will follow up with you via the email after the event. All right, so I think that is everything that I have to say in terms of housekeeping items. Obviously, I want to welcome our panel today. We have Alex. Alex, I believe you're in Vietnam today, so it is past 10 p.m. for you. How are you?
Yes, sir. I'm doing good. Thank you.
Excellent. Happy to have you here, and thank you for staying up late. Then now we have Dan Perovic. Dan, you're from Warmock. Where are you joining us from today?
Yeah, I'm based out of Washington, D.C. area.
Okay, great. So EST as well. So we didn't make you get up so early in this morning.
Exactly.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here with us today. And now I want to also welcome Ben Johnson-Ward from Curiosity Software. How are you, Ben?
Good. I'm here from New York City.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here today. And we also have the one and only Guillaume, that I'm going to save myself from making a fool of myself trying to pronounce your beautiful last name. But Guillaume is the co-founder of Octoperf. Hello, Guillaume. Where are you joining us from today?
Hello, Lucio. I'm joining from France, and don't bother. People in France will get it right anyway, so you know.
Okay. There you go. Now I don't feel so bad about it. So, well, thank you so much for being here, friends. What time is it there for you right now?
Just around 4 p.m. So not too late. It's okay.
All right. Excellent. There you go. Happy to hear. Thank you so much for being here. And last but not least, we have Sergio Freire, and you are the Director of Solutions Architecture and Test Management at X-Ray. Hello, Sergio. How are you today?
Hi, everyone. All good from Aveiro, the Venice of Portugal. A sunshine.
Wonderful. All righty, there you go. So I'm feeling extremely envious. Half of our presenters today are in. Just to give you a quick roundup, we're in Vietnam. We're here in Washington, in DC, and also New York, Orlando, Florida, myself, and then we have people in Portugal and France. So we are covering almost all seaboards right now. I see in the chat that we have people from Thailand, from Milwaukee, from Scotland, beautiful country, from India, of course. I'm in Argentina. Saludos a toda la gente de Argentina. Then we also have Washington and Mill Creek. There you go. Italy, Tunisia, Switzerland, Indonesia, Malaysia, Atlanta. My goodness, this is wonderful. So all the Catalians, thank you so much for being here. Germany, there you go. Poland, Toronto, Spain, saludos, la gente de España. So, all right. So with that being said, I'm not gonna run you through all the agenda again. Thank you everyone for being here. So I think it's time for us to go ahead and get started with the panel. I am going to leave this slide here for a moment. And yeah, let's go ahead and kick it off. So the first presentation that we will have today is, as I mentioned before, is going to be a panel discussion that is going to be led by all the participants that we have here today. I will be the host. I'll try to drive the conversation. And this is called The Future of Software Quality. So we have some questions that we want to go ahead and, let me stop this share here really quick while we all get ready. We have some questions that we want to drive, but in the meantime, while I find here my cheat sheet. There you go, found it. All right, so yeah, all of you feel free to jump in, but the way that this is going to work, and also to give the audience an overview of how is it that we're going to do this. We have multiple questions today. Obviously, we're going to focus on AI. There are multiple questions about how is it that if AI is going to replace our jobs or is going to make it better. We're going to talk about how is AI helping MBT and TDM. We're going to talk about how can AI help with exploratory testing topics. There is a lot of involvement of LLMs in today's conversation. So, but first of all, let me go ahead and actually I'll leave the panel up, and I won't obfuscate the screen with so many slides on. So since it's going to be and also to the audience, this is going to be an open platform. We're going to be discussing. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat window. So I want to go ahead and kick it off, and by asking a question to Alex, if you don't mind kicking it off the session today. And the question to you is, from your own perspective and in your areas of expertise, which things that we're going to discuss today, like performance testing, functional API mocking, etc. How is the new wave of AI helping improve software quality? And what are some core cases that you can maybe share with us today and the audience as well?
Sure. So in the area that I've been specializing or focusing on, recently here at Katalon is mostly around helping our testers essentially become much more productive. Just like software developers have been leveraging a lot of Copilot AI assistants to become more productive or hyper-productive, I would say. We want to have the same effect, or enable the same effect to the testing professionals. And we're doing that in a few different ways. Some of the use cases are still evolving, but one use case that we are exploring, and we are in beta with our customers, is the use case where we essentially take the burden of regression testing off of the testers' backs, right? So essentially enabling software testers to stop thinking about manually creating or manually automating regression tests and letting Katalon and our AI technologies take care of that. And we do that in a few different ways. The flagship capability that we're building out right now, and it's in beta, is we're calling True Test, which is essentially building out automated regression tests that essentially mimic what the real users, the real end users of an application are doing in a production system, in a production environment. And the reason we decided to tackle the regression testing challenge from that perspective, from all the way to the right of the SDLC, is because we see that a lot of, 100% of our customers are struggling with keeping up with regression testing, making sure they're always ready to run, making sure they're up to date, release after release. So what happens is they either spend too much time on trying to maintain those regression tests and then don't have enough time to test new functionalities in the proper way, or they focus most of their time in testing the new functionalities, and then they pretty much pray so that nothing breaks when they release, because they don't have the time to do proper regression testing. So in either case, regression testing is a major issue that all of our customers have been reporting to us for a long time, but expecting them to automate those regression tests by themselves has proven to be quite a challenge, a tall order for our customers. So with TrueTest, what we're doing is automating those tests for them, but we're not just looking at requirements, which obviously are ambiguous and are interpreted in different ways by different people. And it completely depends on how those business analyst teams, the product owners, how much detail they put in those requirements, right? And those user stories, those epics, those features, etc. So because any tests that we automatically generate from those artifacts, what we have found in our early experiments is that testers would question, or they would validate if the tests generated are really covering what the requirements are meant to do. So there's a lot of variability there because of the inherent ambiguity of requirements. So we decided to go all the way to the right and look at what the users are actually doing in production, because that's not you cannot question that. You cannot debate on whether it's real or not. We have telemetry, right, today to show us that users are actually going through these flows and they're doing these activities in each part of the flow, and so on and so forth. So if we understand what they're doing, why not automatically generate tests to run through those user flows that we saw in production, run through those same flows in your pre-production environment as part of your release process. So the goal there being ensuring that whatever flows are currently working in production do not break with the new code you're creating in your new release. And doing that in a very accurate way, because we are starting from factual data, which is how users are navigating production. So that's, like I said, we're in beta and we're receiving tremendous feedback from our current customers on the benefits they're already getting, and also feedback for enhancing the capabilities that we are building. So it's been a really exciting period, because learning all that with our customers at the same time that we're solving a real challenge that's been around forever, and that technology, and specifically AI, has finally enabled us to tackle that in a meaningful way. So really psyched about that use case.
That is great. Thank you for sharing. And so we have there's a lot that is happening in the background, and now you're telling us about this technology, TrueTest, and one of the things that I've heard from people is that it's going to allow testers eliminate the guesswork. That to me translates into is going to help me, however, as a tester. However, the question remains, and I'm looking at Sergio because this is a good leeway into something that I know he would like to talk about, where the question is always there. Is AI going to replace the job of the tester? What are your thoughts on that?
That's a great question. And I think to answer that question, we could probably rephrase it in a slightly different way. Will AI replace presenters such as you, Lucio, or managers such as me, Sergio, and the others out there, or developers? I think we have been asking this for quite a long time around AI and automation. Of course, things change with time, and sometimes people forget a bit about what is testing and what we do in testing. And I think Alex was touching one of the points that I think is relevant about how we can be more productive, right? I think the question is not so much around whether we will be replaced or whether testers will be replaced. It's more about living and taking advantage of what the technology allow us to do, and also thinking about all the things that embrace testing. And testing is about discovering new information. It's not just about it can be about running a bunch of tests that we are all testing the known knowns, but it's also about exploring our products. And for that, we need people with context. And I always remember one person that I worked with many years ago, and he was able to skip like auditing because that person would not put like things like in that issue tracker that we used back a long time ago. So tools can be quite good whenever they have data, but if then they don't have data, they cannot really invent stuff from nothing. And a tester knows a lot about the team, about the context of the organization, about where risks are in terms of projects, in terms of technologies, in terms of the people that are working in the team. And of course, that affects testing. That affects the testing that we should look, because in the end, testing is about addressing the risks, right? What are the risks that are most important? And this changes with time and changes with the context, right? So we know that testing is multidimensional. We look at different quality criteria whenever we test. And for different stakeholders, these quality criteria, they are different because we value things differently. And the context of the team at a given point in time, it's also different, right? What matters most to the team right now, what to our end users right now is different than what will matter to them in 1 week from now or in another release. Of course, there are a bunch of stuff that we do, and don't take me wrong, but there are a bunch of stuff that we do that we actually can use AI and automation to leverage what we do. For example, we can use AI tools to make smart prediction, right, about test results. We can look at the code commits and figure out based on that and the historical data whether those commits broke builds in the past, and figure out the probability of that commit breaking builds afterward. We can use AI to sum up like all the results that we obtain during some suite, during some planning that we do. No matter if we did like manual testing, I'm putting double quotes there, or running through test automation. We want to be able to get actually to the root cause, right? So in my perspective, and many people may not agree with that, testing is not just about finding the problems, it's actually going back to the root cause and trying to address the root cause as fast as possible. And that requires not just finding the bug, but what provokes it, right? And then fix it together with the team. So many times a tester has to pair with the developer and with other team members in order to improve quality from the start, right? Shifting testing to the left side, right? And that's how we can improve quality, working together as a team. Of course, we can use these the AI tools whenever we are making the code. We can make code with better quality from the start for the things that we know, right? But we can also use AI to assist us and give us ideas, even whenever we have like some junior members in the team. Maybe they are lacking ideas, and we can use AI to provide some ideas. I think what we should have in mind, especially whenever we look at all these LLM tools that they all suffer from hallucination, and people should be aware of that, is that we should use critical thinking and taking the output of AI as another source of information, right? That means that sometimes it can be quite helpful. It can accelerate what we do. Sometimes it can provide stuff that it's useless. So we have to have this critical thinking whenever we look at these things. So it will replace the testers? I don't think so. It hasn't replaced the developers so far. right? We have no code, we have low code, we still have developers, and we'll have developers for a long time. Of course, we can be more efficient doing what we do, right? And we can use all these tools to provide like smart selection of tests to make more predictive analysis on what is happening, helping us get to the root cause and fixing the problems earlier. That's how we should look at these tools. And also, I think Alex was telling about, well, all those user journeys, looking at what is happening in production, using that to drive the testing that is done, right, during development. And making this connection is also really important. And I'm not sure if I extended myself a bit.
No, you're good. There's no time limit. It's all about having a great conversation. I want to address. Thank you, Sergio, for sharing those insights. I want to address a couple of questions that came through the chat. I'm sorry, through the Q&A panel, and one of them came in earlier, and I think it had to do with probably what you're saying, Sergio, and also what Alex was commenting about, and is talking about how. The first one is how is it that true AI is going to know the scope of regression testing that will need to be covered, and how AI is going to help in maintaining a regression scenario if there are any changes. So that is interesting, because we're talking now about how is it that it's going to understand that things are changing in the application, correct?
Yeah, that's right. So go ahead, sir. You want
that? I just want to share like one thing that I remember, like the team from Google, they have like this big massive repo where they manage all the projects, right? And they have like a special version of Git, right? Whenever someone makes a code commit, basically they cannot really afford to go over, run all the tests that validate all the projects that Google depends on, right? So they have to do a smart selection based on the code commit, the person, the history, and that's a really good use case to use AI to optimize.
Yeah,
and in this case, execution.
Right, that's a great point. That's all about optimization. And in the regression testing scope, specifically to the question here, I believe Akash was put the question in as I was talking about true test. The way we are thinking about optimizing that whole process is, or the definition of the scope in this question is, imagine that you have a base of knowledge, right, which is accurate, which is non-debatable. And based on that, you can automatically generate tests that will run in an automated fashion for you. And the first place to start and find that factual data is in production in the form of those user journeys. And so the scope of the regression testing that we are starting with is really, how can we make sure that the experience of those users in production does not regress as you are pumping out new code, right? So the thought process of this initial use case is that we're not generating automated regression tests to cover every single corner of your application, right? Because that would require a ton of effort for you to teach the AI, for you to basically specify everything. And in a lot of cases, in most cases, even the quality engineering team themselves don't have the knowledge of the entire scope of the application. So what we decided to do is, instead of tackling that super hard problem of fully regression testing every single possibilities, right? We said, hey, let's optimize and focus on what is really business, critical for you, for the end user, for your company, which is how the users are navigating. They have to continue to do the activities they're doing in your production system. Otherwise, your company is gonna start losing money. It's gonna start, losing customers. Business is going to be impacted. So let's protect that make sure that doesn't break as you go release after release. And then you can augment that by providing the inputs as a human, right, as a domain expert, to go beyond the scenarios that are essentially the user flow, right? So absolutely, that collaboration is what will make the solution strong, right? For any AI solution, right? Going back to what Sergio was explaining, it's all about that collaboration. It's not about just fire and forgetting, right? Trusting that AI is going to do everything correctly. No, we have to make sure we pair up and look at AI as a tool for us, as a resource to us, to accomplish things that we weren't able to accomplish before, or to make us more efficient, go faster, and so on. And then to the second question there of Akashdeep is the maintenance of those regression testing. So the way TrueTest is tackling that is, as we observe, or as TrueTest observes, that the user behavior has changed in production, usually after a new release, right? Now you have new functionalities, you have new pages, new fields on the screen for the user to interact with. As TrueTest detects that, it automatically regenerates the impacted test cases, so that you always have a regression suite that's automated and that's ready to run, and is always reflecting what the latest user behavior is being demonstrated in production. So there's really no maintenance to be done by the tester. It's all done by AI based on how the users are changing their behavior as they're interacting with new features that you have just released. So no maintenance from that perspective.
That is great. Thank you for sharing, Alex. And there is so Sergio, you were talking about, I think we got to a conclusion, and we all can agree. And I like to mention this in every webinar where we touch this topic on whether AI is going to take the job or not. And everyone, calm down. AI won't take your job. It will actually make you much better at what you're doing. I personally, and I think this applies for any industry, just get good at what you're doing using AI for, because I think that's going to be the key. Like, if you learn how to use that tool that you use to leverage AI, it will be fantastic. So another question for Alex, and thank you, Akashdeep, for hopefully we provided an answer to you. Another question for Alex: why have developers embraced AI a lot faster compared to testers? So it looks like developers and coders have been adopting this way faster than testing. Is that the perception or the reality, and if so, why is that happening?
Yeah, no, it's an absolute reality. We're seeing that there's some research coming out, being published, quite frequently now, by different analyst firms, by different consulting companies, and the developers, because of the way they operate, right? It's all about creativity for coming up with solutions to problems, right? So if you have to develop a new feature, you as a developer, you think through different scenarios, you experiment, right? And then until you find the right way to implement a requirement, for example. So if you have AI helping you do that, right? If you can interact with the AI to say, hey, here's what I want to do. I want to be able to, make a deposit into a certain account with these characteristics. Can you help me write the code for it, right? You leverage your code copilot. If the copilot gives you back one line of code to implement that requirement, or 1,000 lines of code, it doesn't really matter for the developer, right? All he or she cares about is that you can make the deposit according to the requirements. So the developer will immediately run that code, see if it does what's expected. If it does, great, check code in, and then move on to the next task. Now, the developer, the tester mindset is different. What we've seen ourselves in our early experiments when we were doing alpha version or alpha testing with some of our customers, and also in these research that I mentioned, it shows that the tester looks at leveraging AI differently. or not differently, but looks at leveraging AI from a different point of view. So while developers interact with the AI, get the output, which is the code in their case, and then they move on. Testers, if they, for example, provide a requirement to a large language model and ask the large language model to produce test cases, to cover that requirement. What we've seen is that testers will take those test cases that were generated, and instead of just taking those test cases, maybe polishing it a little bit, and then use those test cases, run those test cases, they will actually look at the test cases, and they'll look at the requirements that they provided to the large language model, and they'll start validating the output. They'll start questioning if the large language model really considered all the possibilities, if the test has what they believe are the right things to be tested, if the large language model didn't miss anything, if there's too many scenarios, too little scenarios, too many variations, too many variations. And so what we've seen in some of our customers, and these research papers are coming out now, is showing that if you just leverage the generative AI use cases as a tester, if you leverage the same way as a developer, in other words, just get the same use case and apply it to testing, it's actually reducing the productivity of the testing team, because now you are, in addition to having to test your own application, which is your day job, you are now validating the output of the large language model because you don't trust it, which is normal, right? As testers, that's how we are wired. We question everything. That's our jobs. So now you're questioning those outputs. So what we've seen is that for a tester to effectively leverage use cases with generative AI, the generative AI has to have these characteristics. It has to be, the output has to be explainable, it has to be auditable, and it has to be repeatable, right? So if you put the same requirement, you give the same requirement to a large language model, and every time, you give it 3 times, and then it spits out 3 completely different sets of test cases, as a tester, you're not going to trust it. What we've been seeing is that testers will go like, oh, this is, too much for me to validate myself. I don't really trust it. I don't have the time. I'll just do it myself. I'll just create tests by hand by using my knowledge, my expertise to read the requirements and then go from there. So obviously that's something that, the repeatability issue and explainability and auditability are inherent issues of any large language model, and a ton of people are trying to address that and solve that. But from a testing perspective, there are other use cases that are more, acceptable for testers to apply, and we're seeing some early results already. But just something to consider is that if we try to apply the same developer use cases around AI to the testing domain, we've seen that testers are not going to get to the same level of productivity increase as developers did. So we need to think about those use cases differently, specifically for the testing professional.
And Lucy, I'd like to jump in on that as well. I bet.
Yes, please.
So it's important to look at the different problems that are facing developers and testers, right? If I'm a developer and I'm trying to get something working and I have really good tooling based on countless Stack Overflow questions that the AIs have been trained on, I've got GitHub Copilot trained on all of the world's code in a repository. That's a very easy essentially easy problem for these LLMs to do. Some short bursts of difficult creative thinking that I would have to go and find out, look up the documentation for, etc. That's a very, very strong use case. You can see why it works, right? If you compare that to testing, the training of what they would be built on, it's not out there, right? There's not as used kind of equivalent of writing out this kind of thing in Stack Overflow, all the tests. And the other thing is, if you think about these AIs and what you're trying to do with them, if I ask for a test, like Alex said, I will probably get back an individual good test, right? I might go through, I might not trust it, I might verify it, fine. What the LLMs are not yet good at is, okay, what are all of the possibilities and consistent with generating all of the possibilities within a given scope. They're quite good at designing tests. They're not as good yet at designing test suites. So if I want to kind of if I'm as a tester trying to prove something works a particular way, it doesn't necessarily help me as much as I would like. On the other hand, if you are writing automated tests and you know you want to do a very particular finicky thing, it is still very powerful from that, but you're basically doing a developer piece of work there. The two other things I wanted to say about this were, for all of the things that we say about AI and how it will affect quality, it's worth noting that you have to stay up to date on this. In March or in April, the next generation of models, their training is going to finish. And a lot of our presumptions about what the AIs are good at and what they're not good at might go out the window. There was a question in the chat about broader context and what their users know. A lot of that might shift very suddenly when some of these models come out. It's important to keep in mind. And the last thing to say that I wanted to say about this, when it comes to kind of like, testing adoption versus, developer adoption, is when you're asking the AI for these things, it doesn't necessarily have all that context. But if you look at it from a discovery of problems point of view, or Will was kind of saying earlier, it might be more useful to shift it to helping you understand where to look and to broadening out from testing to quality, right? Where in my application am I looking? Looking at these incidents, how do these relate to bugs, doing root cause analysis. Those are some of the things that we're focused on as well. So I'd say right now, the tooling for developers for their use case is much stronger and it's much more generic than it is for testing, which is a little bit more bespoke, and the AIs aren't quite as good at that kind of reasoning just yet. And all of the testing tools for AI are having to build kind of layers and layers and layers on top, whereas Copilot is pretty much, give me this code that does this thing, give or take.
That is great. And then, Ben, it looks like, I don't know if you addressed it just now, but also there is a question by an anonymous attendee where they are asking, in the dawn of AI testing, how do you think we can ensure that there is enough test coverage? And I think it goes with what you were saying, and Alex also, we have all these tools that are, and like you mentioned, Copilot and other things that are helping us get better at testing. However, how we can ensure that we are actually testing what we're supposed to and have all the coverage that we need.
It's important whenever you're considering AI use cases to consider what they're currently good at, right? And consider, should I be using an expert system? Could the AI be selecting an expert system for me? If I have a very well-defined area, maybe I can actually calculate the coverage in a more exact way. Or if I'm thinking about even testing AIs, as we'll talk about a little bit later, maybe I have to have a new definition of coverage. I think what the AI can help you with today for like more traditional systems is help identify either orthogonal types of tests that you haven't considered, maybe look at sets of tests and consider what might be missing. I think they don't quite have the consistency to be putting out very, very precise suites that cover a lot of things. But what you can do often is ask them to generate you code that will do these kinds of things, right? Generate me code that will create every combination that covers these pairs, etc. So I think there are opportunities for coverage. I don't think the exact tooling you need to do it is there yet. One of the things we're working on at Curiosity is, we have expert systems for calculating coverage and generating, optimal and fully covered test sets for some model of a system. What the AI is helping us with is that interface between the human of what is that model. So you can have cases like that where you're pairing an AI with an expert system as well.
Excellent, thank you. All right, so I want to jump, and I want to, Dan, I'm going to put you on the spot because I think we're talking about tooling, we're talking about AI and how it replaces or it will help us. So a question for you is, do you think with the dependencies on AI vendors like OpenAI and all these models that are coming out, being that a growing market, how we can manage the additional costs of testing our software that requires with all these third-party applications?
Yeah, great question. We tend to look at AI from the other angle than what we've been talking about at WireMock and the dependency of the systems that we're testing on these new AI vendors that are out there. And unfortunately, vendors like OpenAI, ChatGPT, they charge pretty exorbitant costs at times, right? To use their endpoints. So it really starts to hinder how much testing we can do, especially when you start talking about load, performance, reliability style testing, right? And we're hearing a lot that they just, customers can't do the testing that they need against these particular endpoints, this AI that's being included in the systems that they need to test for, right, and make sure that it's happening. So, we're having a lot of, customers and users coming and saying, okay, well, how can we address this, right? There's a lot of ambiguity. We heard from Sergio and Alex, and the way LLMs answer and hallucinate is often unpredictable. It's not repeatable. Well, I mean, I've always equated testing to using the scientific method, right? And you kind of only try and change one variable at a time. When you're testing, that should be your own software that you're testing. It shouldn't be those third-party dependencies and whether or not a hallucination is coming. So, things, stubbing and mocking, it's been around for ages, right? I started my software career with ITKO, Lisa, CA virtualization 10, 15 years ago. And to see the resurgence of the need of capabilities where we can predictably get these AI third parties and dependencies replying back in ways that we expect as testers, whether that's in a positive way, right? We can make sure the same answer comes back to the same question every time, or that it hallucinates randomly and that our system under test can actually handle those hallucinations, right? These are all cases that you can't just go out and ask a vendor to do for you. And then, of course, as you asked, there's the whole cost piece. How do we do performance testing against these endpoints without ramping up the cost of doing that performance testing? So our dependencies continue to grow, right? And then the need for systems and mocking solutions out there is continuing to grow as well. And I love to see that, just because, again, being part of the path to making stubbing and mocking a more ubiquitous tool outside of just developers doing it inside of their code and into quality assurance engineering, performance engineering, site reliability engineering has been very exciting for me. So, in saying all that, right, we need to make sure we have toolings, like WireMock Cloud, right, that can help us solve for these challenges. In fact, for any of our people joining us today, if you have reliance on OpenAI, ChatGPT, feel free to check out our free tool, right? That helps actually give you that repeatability and generate those hallucinations when you need to test them. So, a little bit different angle than we're talking here, and using AI to generate tests and code coverage and create those suites, but more to solving the additional challenges that and burdens it's introduced on the testers when our system under test really relies on these new AI technologies.
Thank you. And while we talk about, quick summary, we talk about how is it that AI will help us? How is it that testers are adopting these technologies, and now then what we're talking about, how is it that we can manage the cost? I want to direct my attention to Guillaume, because there is a very important question here on whether is it with testing tools or LLMs. Now that we're talking about products and solutions, is it better to build your own, or is it better to use existing products? And then we also have a question about open source down the road, but I want to address that one. Is it better to buy, or is it better to grab, like most of these technologies that we're seeing out there, they have models that are free and open source, and it looks like it would be advantageous to build your own thing in-house. Is that what is your opinion on that?
Can I say it depends? and
Absolutely, absolutely.
No,
let's
yes.
let's start it. Let's start the debate.
No, of course it depends, of course. But maybe just to transition with what everyone has been saying so far, and then with load testing, because it's my area of expertise. First of all, AI in load testing is useful mostly around load testing, not on load testing itself, simply because it's a niche inside testing. So it's too small of a niche to be trainable for AIs. So we haven't seen anything really relatable in that area. That's why I haven't spoken so far. But it's very interesting. And Dan said it earlier, you can use it to mock systems that you want to load test. So you said, as I said, around load testing, you can use AI. Now, about the subject of using existing tools or AIs or whatever instead of building your own, it's always a difficult question because, a lot of people like to create something. You like to create a tool, like to use it, like to spend time working with it. But at the same time, you don't want to reinvent the wheel. So you have to decide where you draw the line. You could value your time and say, okay, if I'm going to spend a year on this, and there's a graphic novel on xkcd.com where there's a timetable where to explain to you where you should be automating, where you should not. Just put it on paper and think how much time is it going to take me to build it, and versus how much will it cost me to purchase one that does it for me. So as Dan mentioned, the APIs from OpenAI can be very expensive. So if you're going to call them, I don't know, X time per day, then you have an idea of the cost it would represent, and you can work on that to see how to address it yourself. On the other end is the fact that you will have to manage and maintain the tool. And if you're working on a large company, this also means you will be handling customer support for the tool you built internally. So that's one other thing I think nobody takes into account at first. Are you ready to handle customer support for the tool you built? And is it something you want to do? Because, you can have a lot of solicitations around this. So, all of this makes it a very difficult question to answer definitively. I think it's good to summarize what I've said is I think it's good to count the time you will spend on it, count the effort you would have to put to create your own solution, and think about the value a professional solution will bring to you. Will it take care of the dashboard? Will it take care of the reporting? For instance, in load testing, one of the common misconceptions is people tend to think in load testing, the difficulty is to generate the load, whereas it's actually very easy to generate load. You have loads and loads of open source tools, and for every situation where you can generate load to any system, it's very easy. The difficulty is how much time will it take you to do that, and the analysis of results. If you don't get proper insights, your load test is pretty much useless. So, it's all about analysis, monitoring. And I can say this with confidence, none of the open source load testing tool, they will have analysis built in. You will have to go to some professional tool for that. So see, that's what I meant by evaluate what the professional tools will bring to you. Is it something you can build? Is it something you're willing the time to build? Do you have the expertise, etc., etc.?
Excellent, thank you. And then a follow-up question to that is, so now we're talking about like balancing the benefits versus how long is it going to take you, and on top of that, I mean, in the testing world, or not only in testing but in software development, time equals money, plain and simple. So in that case, say we're talking about load tests, is it easy to do it on open source tests? If it is easy to do it in open source tools, why should people pay for products anymore?
That's a great question, right? There's the support piece that often everyone looks by, right? You bring in an open source tool and you get some immediate benefits out of it. There's no doubt, and then demand starts to grow, and the person that brought it in now becomes full-time support, right? And not only we're supporting the tool and then enabling others to use it, We're also now supporting infrastructure for it. And then we start getting pockets of use, and the reuse doesn't happen, right? We have people remaking the same assets, using them, throwing them away, and we're losing a lot of reusability and cost savings by having collaboration and sharing these assets, across the organizations. And then when you get to the enterprise level, oftentimes the open source solutions are really meant for very early life cycle, maybe developers, basic unit testing style activities, but they lack the features to really deliver on enterprise volume, enterprise capabilities. Security is another issue that oftentimes, right, is tough to get over, right? There's usually a lack of SSO capabilities and ensuring, that, there's a throat to choke, right? The age old saying from a vendor, one throat to choke. Someone to talk to when you have a problem, get them on the phone, have the backbone, get that support that you need, right? And then also, the community aspect of it. So, open source, traditionally has a strong community, like WireMock open source has a very strong community. But that community is also backed typically by the vendor itself, right? And helping out and committing time and money and expertise to making sure that community stays healthy and continues to evolve that product. So open source is great. I love open source, but there comes a time and a place when demand is picked up and it's really taken a foothold that you need the help of a commercial offering to get you over the hurdles, to get that reuse and wring out the full value of these products.
Thank you. Ben, I see that you have your hand raised. Anything you would like to add?
Yeah, I wanted to add one thing about kind of the build or buy part, just to come back to very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Which I think for me, it kind of comes down one small part. I completely agree with what was already said, which is, do you require an expert system, right? And what kind of AI is it? If there are AIs that you're going to train, you're building an image classifier. It's not a brand new image classifier, but it's based on the MRI images only you have. It needs to be tuned for what you're doing. That's probably very worth it. Otherwise, if you're thinking, okay, I have a large language model, I need to fine tune it for my situation, there are fine tunings you can do with some of the open source things that are kind of linked to the chat, etc. You can chain things up. But what I would absolutely avoid doing, of course, would be building very, very large, very capable models, just because obviously, some of these things have training costs that run into the billions. So you have to think, is this something which is better if and only I have this problem and I need to kind of build something bespoke? If it's maybe a little bit, other people have these kinds of problems, can I consider libraries like Hugging Face and OpenLLM, etc., to kind of, put other pieces people have built together? But for very expert things or very high, I need something that has the understanding of GPT-4. I might just have to wrap other features around that and bring it in, because you're not going to build something as capable as that yourself.
Thank you so much, Ben. Now I want to go ahead and put here. I'm going to put you on the spot because we talk about how to.
Oh no!
Hey, you sign up for this, man. So I'm picking on you. But yeah, there's a question here for you. Like, why don't you tell us in terms of like we're it looks like we're diving deep into using AI to generate tests and how we can use all these tools and there is multiple things, commercial, open source, all these models, etc. So what have you seen so far in terms of using AI to generate tests out there in the industry? Is there anything you can share with the audience about probably your experiences, anecdotes, or anything that you may be experimenting with right now?
Sure. So later during the talk, I'll be doing like a very small live demo, but I've been experimenting for a while there. There is like a bunch of people actually also experimenting, especially LLMs for this. And in my concrete experiences, what I found is that the generation of the test cases, if we try the solutions that I've seen so far, they are not super awesome, I have to say. Have in mind that I really like to have good stuff. So I think they can give you test cases that are like obvious, like positive and negative cases, and that's one question that we have that I'm seeing. We can use the solutions to make that, to generate those test cases. I think that can be useful for especially junior testers, but a more experienced tester won't need that, because that person will basically know how to make it. Another thing is about the solutions that I've seen even in commercial products out there, none from the people that is here in the call, but I saw some let's say competitors doing some automatic generation of test cases, and they are eating a wall, honestly, because they are generating. They don't allow you to fine tune the way that first of all that AI is going to generate the test steps. For example, they can generate like lengthy test cases, and the probability, what happens if you generate lengthy test cases with the highly detailed steps, is that since you have a restricted source of information, the AI will start inventing stuff, right? It starts inventing in fields that it doesn't know about. That's the problem. If you use, in other hand, if you use AI to generate like more brainstorming kind of ideas or more test cases at high level, I think it's where the risk like diminishes, and I think it's more helpful at that point, because the probability of I think Alex before mentioned like 3 aspects about LLMs. I'm trying to remember them, but I think I was whenever Alex was talking, one aspect that I think it should be also mentioned is correctness. We don't want something that generates incorrect stuff, right? Or else we are generating test cases that are not really trustworthy. And that's a challenge. And if we try, and many of these solutions that I've seen, or these preliminary concepts, they just ingest information from a user story that has like a small paragraph. So what can an AI system infer from that, right? That's the issue. It doesn't go into, like, say, related documents or related issues. It doesn't go after all those places where we can have context. I mean, the context that is like digitalized, because the other that is non-digitalized, like it's on the tester's mind, that is hard to achieve. But even I'm talking about this context that the tools could use as source for the data. They're not going there. They're just going over they're using just a very brief paragraph as the context to generate the test cases, and of course the quality of these test cases then is not to be what we all expect. We can nevertheless use these tools to provide like ideas for test cases. Sometimes even an experienced tester, because of the context there, it may be in that day, or that person may be in that day, may be lacking some ideas. And these tools, if they have like a way for us to fine-tune the level of, let's say, what is my concern? Am I concerned about this quality aspect? I'm concerned about performance. I'm concerned about security. So if there's like a more controlled way of interacting with these tools, they will be able to provide better answers. What I've seen not so far is something that we do as testers. Anyone does that as tester. Whenever we go to a shop, whenever we are going to buy a TV, for example, or wherever, a game console, basically we interact with the buyer and we ask like a bunch of questions going back and forth. So do you support this and that? How does it behave with this set of TVs? So on and so forth. And depending on that, we take our decision. We think whether the quality of the product or what we are trying to buy is good or good for our use case. And these tools right now, the solutions that I've seen, they are not iterative, right? So they just provide like a solution in one shot. And it should be more like a conversation where we could refine the conversation in order for the value that it produces. In this case, the test cases that it produces are actually more useful to us.
Excellent, thank you. I want to do a quick time check, and this session is going to run until 11:15 a.m. EST. So we are about 6 minutes from transitioning into a different one, and I want to make sure that we leave enough time for the Q&A that is coming through the Zoom. So thank you, Sergio, for providing those insights. There are a couple of questions here, and one that I want to direct to Ben. The question says, is model-based testing with AI more promising for creating test suites, or do you think that is also flawed?
Yeah, I think it is a little bit different, actually. So you kind of come back to what Sergio was saying about, being able to generate these tests, and hey, if the information fundamentally isn't there, it fundamentally isn't there. If it creates you tests from it, that is one way or another hallucination. Because what could it possibly be based on, even if it is a super intelligence, right? Totally correct. If you kind of compare that to, say, somewhere where, okay, when I'm talking to the large language model, I give it some problem, I give it some definition of some logic, and I say, instead of generating me tests, because honestly, even if it has the information, when you ask them to generate 20 things, it's not considering how all the 20 things combine with each other to cover something. If I say, give me code that generates some optimal test cases to cover this, it can often do that. A model-based approach in general is to have some model that represents all of the information that you need and to automatically derive the test cases from that. And there are tools like, we have a Curiosity software for doing that. There's other tools in the past have been doing that. There's expert tools for that, etc. The traditional problem with those tools has been, where do you get the model from? How do you build that model? And that's kind of where AI is helping us now, right? So we still have the model and the tooling behind it automatically generating the tests, but how can we build that model more quickly rather than it being entirely manual? Can we have many more things we can import information from, and we can actually ask the AI questions about the model instead? So from a model-based testing point of view, you still have all of the traditional things of, once you get the model, generating optimized test cases with well-known algorithms. And what you trust the LLM with instead is, just like you have it write code, you say, can you help me build this model, right? I'm going to give you an image of a UI. Here are all the different things that could happen. Could you build me a model that represents that I can derive my tests from? And there's various different ways you can do that with modeling. So I don't think it falls into exactly the same trap. I think normally model-based testing with AI, the two kind of things that you would do is, A, can the AI make it simpler to build the model? Because everything from there is easy. And B, if you have a complicated model, right, can the AI help explain it to you? Can it help you surface things you might have missed and refine that model with you?
Excellent, thank you.
Lucio,
yes, go ahead.
Can I add just something? I think on what Ben was just saying, I think I really like model-based testing, I have to say. I think even whenever we are building like a model is a starting point for a team as a discussion, right? We can use eventually AI to help us build these models, and then we can use AI to generate an optimized set of tests from this model. But a model is a model, right? Like we do in testing, we work with models, and it can have some flaws. It should be like a starting point for a discussion in the team to see if that model represents what we and our end users expect from the system. Is that model really addressing what an end user is expecting from the system, or another stakeholder is expecting from the system? So using these models as also a starting point for conversation, I think it's another way of improving quality, right? Indirect way.
All the things that we've kind of been doing with that is, because these models in the ideal case are I can go to a product owner and say, is this how it's supposed to behave? This is how I've read the requirement. This is what I'm testing against, right? So you're starting to test against how it should behave rather than how it does behave. That has always been the classical thing with model-based testing. What we're kind of doing now that can be linked with LLMs is if you know how different requirements are linked to the model and you have these all in an online repository and you get all of this and you put it in a vector database, you can ask a large language model about things about your system and it can answer it based on knowledge it's looking at in the tickets in the Jira and things it's worked out from a model. So we can actually have an AI, I can ask it, hey, can somebody who has a credit rating of this and this get a mortgage? And it can find the model, look through the logic of the model, understand it and give me an answer. And if I don't agree, I can go look at that model and change it.